Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to afternoon tea time with noodle legs with a cup of tea. Cheers. No, today I've got a top 10 for you. I've not done many top 10s for a while, so I've sort of collaborated my own today. And I've called this my top 10 favourite reality horror movies. Now, when I say reality horror movies, what I mean by this, I don't know if it's actually a subgenre or whatever. Maybe I just created my own. Who knows? But these are films that um, could happen, or sort of would have happened, or some of them might even be based on some sort of true stories. But these are sort of films that can be sort of like devastating, and films that things that could actually happen to us human beings, I guess, or worse still, to our planet. So I've got a combination of sort of films here, and we're going to go through a top 10, which I think are reality horror films, and these is my top 10. Starting off at number 10. Now, we've all come out of a virus a couple of years ago called COVID, which we suffered for. So I was going to put in a film called Contagion, but I went for 28 Days Later as number 10. This is same sort of thing, really. It's about a disease, a virus. But this one is a lot more deadly than, well, I don't know if it's as deadly as COVID, because COVID unfortunately claimed so many innocent people's lives. And so does this film. It's about a virus that's been bred in a laboratory called Rage, and it's sort of like these animal rights people break into this laboratory in Cambridgeshire to set these monkeys free, and they've all been contaminated with this virus called Rage. And one of the monkeys attacks one of the girls there, and she sort of splits out blood, and then she infects the other people that are there, and they get out. And then we cut to 28 days later, and we see our main character, played by Cillian Murphy, in hospital because he was in a motorbike accident. He wakes up, and the whole country is deserted. He's walking around the empty streets of London and stuff, but he comes across groups of enraged people with the virus Rage. Now, a lot of people sort of claim this is sort of like a zombie film. I suppose if you look at it from like packs of people chasing after another bunch of people, you can sort of like look at it as a zombie film, but it isn't a zombie film. There's no zombies in it. It's all about these people that are infected by this virus called Rage, and it takes over their body and their lust to sort of like kill and infect others with the actual disease. And that's probably why it gets close to a zombie film, but it doesn't actually feed on humans like zombies. They just want to pass the virus on. And when all the victims are, all the humans are wiped out, that's when the virus will finally die, because there's no one left to infect. So that's number 10, 28 days later. So that could happen, really. You know, nothing is possible. After COVID, nothing seems impossible now, does it? Number 9 is a sort of horror disaster movie, if you like. And it's Eli Roth's Aftershock. Now, this is based on after an earthquake that's taken place, and it's all these you see all these horrible scenes of sort of mutilated people and stuff like that, trying to get out of like wreckages and stuff like that, and criminals are on the rampage and stuff like this, because it's all gone chaos because of this devastating earthquake. So again, it's something that could happen, and earthquakes do happen. So this is why I've included it as a sort of reality horror, because it could sort of like, don't know if it hopefully get as bad as this, but it could do. This is an extremely gory film by Eli Roth, as we well know. It's what he loves to do in his films, and it is a gory disaster movie about a devastating earthquake and the humans' reaction in the aftermath of that. Good film, really cool. Number 9. Number 10. number 8 is a true story, based on like a serial killer. That's reality because that happens, and we've had them, and we do have them quite a lot. I was going to put Henry in Portrait of a Serial Killer, but I thought no, there's one serial killer film I love above that one, and that is 10 Rillington Place, starring Richard Attenborough, absolutely as John Reginald Christie. Now this was based in, I think, post-war London, and he was killing women and young women and burying them in his yard and in his shed and in his house under the floorboards and stuff. So it was like one of the most sort of like first to come to, I think, maybe not the first serial killer, because we had Jack the Ripper and things like that, but like post-war, it was devastating to see someone doing this after we've just come out of, a world war, and it's kind of a horrendous story, but it's a fantastic film. It's probably my favourite serial killer film of all time. Absolutely love it, and it's amazingly acted, absolutely fantastic. But again, I class it as a reality horror because it happened, and it can happen again, can't it? And it has happened again. We've had the Fred and Rose West, didn't we? So it's horrible and shocking, and it's a horror film. So there we go. Number 8, 10 Rillington Place. Number 7's a bit of a different one. It's more of a disturbing sort of film about a man's struggle with his past and things that he's done. And it stars Sean Harris, and it's called Possum. This story is about a man who's come back to an area because I believe he's been done for sort of child molesting and things like that. But he's had a very sort of bad childhood where he was abused by his family, so he's obviously carried that on into his own life, and it's about him fighting his own demons, and he carries this puppet sort of spider round with him, sort of thing, that's sort of like always hanging on to him and sort of always giving him reminding him how horrible he was. And he goes to stay with his uncle, and his uncle always reminds him about his abusive past, and all of the town have shunned him because of what he's done. So it's a very disturbing sort of horror film, and it is quite scary as well at points. It's scary in the sense of how messed up a human mind can get, and although he's done bad things, you kind of feel for the guy. You're thinking, yes, everyone's actions are their own. No one else is to blame but yourself for your own actions. But sometimes your past can lead you up to doing those actions, and that's sort of like what comes across in this film. It is a difficult watch. It's a very slow burn, and it's quite difficult to understand because Sean Harris is amazing in it. He mutters quite a lot in the film, so it is quite. You have to really listen to what he's saying, and it may take a couple of watches to actually gather what's getting on. But I really love the film, and that's in at number 7. That's Possum. So number 6, it's a kind of a revenge movie, and this one is about a soldier. And it's called Dead Man's Shoes in number 6, and it's about a soldier who's returned home to find out that his brother, who suffers from mental illnesses, has been abused and bullied by the local sort of drug dealers and drug takers. They've been using him to do sort of things for them, deals, and they've been abusing him and they've been humiliating him, and he's come back to avenge his brother, and he's a soldier, and so he's gone back there to sort of like seek revenge. It's kind of a slasher film, but it's heaped in reality. This stuff goes on. We all suffer with drug dealers on every corner of pretty much most streets of the UK, and they do pick on the vulnerable, especially they pick on the vulnerable to do their deals or carry their shipments around, you know, they get young to do it, or people with sort of like illnesses, and this sort of plays on that, and it sort of like turns into a sort of like revenge movie when Paddy returns to get revenge on his brother's demise. It's a really hard, strong watch, but fantastically acted, an amazing film. So number 6 in my top 10 reality horror films is Dead Man's Shoes. So down to the top 5. Number 5 is a house invasion film. In a sense, it's called The Purge, and this is about based in America in the future, and America have they found a way to conquer crime in America. So America is crime free. So there's no crime takes place at all. People just get on with lives and do things, even if they fall out or do bad things to each other, you know, like conning you or something like that. They get on with their lives except for one day of the year, and that's the purge. That's when you can go out and all crime is legal for one day, including murder, revenge, rape, robbery, torture, everything. It's all legal for one day. So anybody that's done wrong for you all year round, that's the day you can go out and seek your sort of revenge on it. And the first one appears on a family. The guy that runs a business that sells security units to houses for the Purge, and they are getting terrorized, him and his family, in his house by a group of masked, sort of like deranged psychos, and it's their family fighting for survival, and the story sort of unfolds as it goes along. And it also turns into a whole franchise of films. We've got like about 4 or 5, I think, Purge movies now. And I actually quite like them. I think they're pretty cool. Again, these come out in the height of the time when things like films like Saw and all that were sort of popular. And so it came out in that sort of frame time period of horror films. And it sort of like, it took a different sort of direction. And I really enjoyed it because, again, it had that real sense of reality, because it just feels so real, because it was like, imagine if this actually happened, where there was no crime all year round, none whatsoever, no burglaries, no murders, no rapes, anything like this, nothing. And in just one day a year, all crimes were legal. It's terrifying, right? It absolutely terrifies me to think that. But there we go. So that's in there at number 4, and that is The Purge. Number 3 is a bit of a different one. It's an animated film by Raymond Briggs called When the Wind Blows. Now this is based on, this is by the guy that did Father Christmas and the Snowman, and this is based on a nuclear attack on a small sort of village in the UK, and it's about these 2 little lovely old people who are trying to survive a nuclear attack. And so it's sort of like, it's a strange one, because it starts off, when I first watched it, I thought, am I watching the right thing? Because it wasn't animated, it was like a real film. But then it turned into the animated film as you go along, and it's really quite disturbing. And you see these lovely old couple fighting and turning around trying to survive, and it's horrible, and it's so sort of shocking for its time, and a really well sort of like really well done. And it's got music in there from the late great David Bowie, and it was just sort of like, wow, that was sort of like, for an animated sort of cartoon from someone that brought you the Snowman and Father Christmas, he's brought you something like this, and it's really, really cool though. It's definitely worth watching and checking out if you've never seen When the Wind Blows. It's fantastic. It is family sort of friendly in a way. It is and it's not. It is a PG, but you know, you do see the couple wilter with illness as they get infected by the post-nuclear attack. It is quite, you know, sad in a way, but it's still a good watch. So number 3 in my top 10 reality horror films is When the Wind Blows. Now number 2 is about sort of a TV show. Okay, it's about a TV sort of like, you know, we're inundated on TV by programs and documentaries and reality shows, and this is sort of like based on one. It's come out in the 80s, I believe, or the 90s, and it's called Ghostwatch. And this was put on by the BBC one sort of Halloween, I believe, and it's about Sarah Green, and they go to this house that's supposed to be haunted by this ghost, and they go to visit this family, and they see all the sort of chaos going on. You've got Michael Parkinson in the studio reporting things back, and all sort of strange things happen in the studio, strange things happen at the house. It's supposed to be set up like a sort of reality show, like a sort of Big Brother, like a those sort of things, but it all goes sort of wrong, and it's supposed to be an actual, they do encounter a real sort of ghost. So I've put it in there quite high simply because I think we're inundated with shows like this, reality shows. So just imagine if something like this did go wrong and something like this did happen, and they actually found out that this stuff does actually happen and it goes, you know, terribly wrong. So I put that quite high, and it is a good watch. It's quite dated now, but it's still really, really good watch, and you can see so many films that have been influenced by it. You know, things like Paranormal Activity, which I was going to put in here, and films like that, must have been all inspired by this sort of Ghostwatch, the Blair Witch Project. It's a kind of found footage sort of film, but it's more like a TV show that goes wrong because what they're investigating is something, you know, deep and dark, and it's come true. So that's why I put it in there, because it's nothing more sort of a reality horror than that, really, is it? Like you're sitting there watching a TV show, and it went up. I remember when it went on the telly, a lot of people did actually think this stuff was going on. A little bit like if you go back to the 1920s or 30s, when on the radio, when H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds was being broadcasted over the radio. Everyone thought it was happening. They were locking themselves in the cellar and stuff like this. They thought these aliens were taking over the planet. Well, this is the TV version, if you like. So that's why it's in there, and that's why it's so high at number 3. Sorry, my numbers are all out, aren't they? Yeah, that was number 3. Number 4 was When the Wind Blows, and number 5 was The Purge. Number 2 is another nuclear attack. Again, once again on the UK. We're for it, ain't we? This time by the Russians. And this is the BBC production of Threads. This is based on a nuclear attack on Sheffield. And the film's sort of based out a little bit like a documentary at the beginning, where you see like Sheffield, and you see this sort of like a sort of time diary going through this sort of thing. Britain's falling out with Russia, and people carrying on with their normal lives, and you get to see things that's going on in Sheffield and stuff like this, and then you get to the attack, and then you get the post-attack, and it's a really, really disturbing sort of program for the BBC to produce, but it's really, really cool. I must review this. In fact, I must do a reality horror show. Maybe this week I'll do it. I'll do this top 10, and then I will review these 2 films in my in the same week, because it'd be good to look at these both. Because obviously, with so much going on in the world at the moment, obviously with Russia, Ukraine, and things out in the Middle East, all sort of kicking off all the time. And all these sort of things, there's always a dormant threat of this on everyone's back of their mind. So that's what turns them into a real reality horror. So we're going to review these 2 films later in the week. So we're going to get to number 1, and number 1's nothing like it. It's almost like a straightforward horror film. It's another home invasion film starring Liv Tyler, and it's called The Strangers. again, I've put this in as a reality one because this could happen. It's about this young couple returning home from a night out, and they get home invaded by a group of bored teenagers wearing masks, and they terrorize them in their own home until their demise and stuff like that. They get terrorized, and stuff like that happens not necessarily in the home. Most of the time, probably out in the street. People could be just going home on a train or a bus, and they get like picked on by groups of youths that are drunk or just bored, and this sort of like plays on that and brings it to a more sort of horror sort of destination, if you like, by giving them these horrendous scary masks. And there's one line in the film that says, why did you do it? It said, because we were booked, because you were there. You know, they were bored, and the only reason they did it because they were there, and that was it. And that's what's horror about it. And I'm just thinking, yeah, this stuff happens, and it could happen. Terrible. It's probably homeowners' fears. You know, I mean, the other film I was going to put in here for like homeowners was Mother's Day, which was Rebecca De Mora's version of the film, where they're getting burgled and it goes wrong, and then they end up getting sort of like hostage and tortured and stuff like that. It's horrendous, and it's everyone's sort of nightmares. And this is the sort of film that nightmares are made of. So that's why I put it at number one, because it is the reality horror of nightmares, The Strangers. And that is my top 10 reality horror films. What do you think of those guys? Do you look at those as being, yeah, you know, they could be all of them reality. They could have all happened, and some of them have happened. You got the true story of the Rillington place. We have had earthquakes. We're always at the threat of the nuclear attacks. We're always getting the only one that's kind of a little bit sort of maybe not would probably be the Ghostwatch, because ghosts are probably most thing of people's beliefs, but everything else in there could happen or has happened, and that's it. I've maybe created my own subgenre of horror there, reality horror films. But anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Until the next video, please check out some other horror channels. Check out Horror Hands, The Horror Geek, Man v Film, RS Design, Pizzawell, I Am Ice Lord, Cat Watches Horror Movies, Grumpy Andrew's Haunted House, and there's Little Sullivan. Hello, mate. And a massive shout out to my lad. And I hope and I'll be seeing him in a few weeks' time, so that'll be cool. Until next time, look after yourselves, look after one another, and I really hope I see you all soon.